This is code.org, and this is going to be a quick overview of libraries and how to complete one. Now, let me go ahead and hit run here. Instagram. What I'm doing here is testing out a library I already imported, the one I made, which you will be doing shortly. Instagram must be the most followed account on Instagram. You'll notice down here, I'm testing out another function, get follow average. So I'm getting the average amount of followers in the top Instagram for the top Instagram account. Libraries are a bit confusing because they're usually not needing visual interfaces unless you're testing them out. We're going to have to import ours, have a friend use it, have us test it ourselves, and make sure it's all ready to rock. Now, again, I'll be going over some of the basics, work all the way through the library project. For more in-depth, more detailed, more finished and polished project, make sure to check out the other library videos. But for a quick run through, let's get going. And here we are, ready to make our exciting library. Let's first look at our requirement. So for these requirements, your library must contain 2 or more functions. That's definitely doable. At least one function must include a loop, an if statement, 1 or more parameters, and a return. A loop, an if statement, 1 or more parameters, and a return. So that sounds good to me. Let's go ahead and dive into our project. We can also, though, reference these suggestions like maximum, minimum. Maybe we find the average. We could capitalize strings, but let's go ahead and take a look. So to start us off, we need to choose a data set. So let me click over here. There's a ton of options. And what I'm going to demo is for a particular one, this would work with a ton of data sets. So pick one you think is fun. I'm diving into culture and entertainment, and I was going to do the most followed Instagram accounts because, I don't know, I'm old and I like to do things that are confusing. I'm 32. Wait, I'm 30. Anyways, preview. But, and so here's the data. Now, what I would like to do with this is I would like to in some way return followers or take a look at that, take a look at accounts. Oh, that's the owner or the username. So let's go ahead and hit import on this. And again, my demonstration will work with several. How you know it worked though is it shows up here. Now I'm headed to the design. Just kidding. For a library is to be used by others. You don't really need any aspects of the design. I know that can be the fun stuff, but you really don't. How a library is used in like real world, I'm making a game right now and my physics system, right? Gravity, I didn't really want to design myself. So I could import a library, a gravity library, a physics library, and just use the data in that, such as their functions. Right away, I want to drag out what we need. So we know we need at least 2 functions, right? And this is completely out of order, I understand. We know we need a for statement. We know we need a conditional or an if statement. And we know we need at least 1 return. And I need a parameter. So I could have dragged out this for a parameter, but I'm just going to do that and make sure I get a parameter. So here we are. Here is our fancy empty library. I'll start by doing something fairly simple, and that's just going to be returning the amount, the account name with a particular rank. So I'll maybe name this something like get account or get user by rank, and then the parameter is what the person can enter that the function can use. It's like a variable. I'll just call this rank. Now what we want to do then is I'm going to use a list. So var x equals blank, bloop, and I want to grab some data. So let me go ahead though and call this user list because it's, or users list. I'll name it user list. It's a list of all the users. Let me do get and drop. Now I need to select what columns I need. You want to click this down arrowy thing, easiest way to do it, and hit choose. Here's mine right here, most followed Instagram account. If that doesn't pop up for you, make sure you imported your data. The other part I need then is I want the user list. So and choose, and they call it user names. I could also do owner list, which maybe I'll actually do. Let's change this up to owner because that's nicely formatted. So, and I want to be clear what I just did. Now inside of this variable owner list is a huge list of the owners. So if we look at the data, boom and boom, the owners are this. So I have a list of all of these names. Now, something cool about lists is you can get through lists by using what they call an index. The only weird thing about an index, for instance, if I want the user with the most followers, I would say user list, because that's what I made. I'd put square brackets and the number 0. And you might say, whoa, this guy's number is 0, but this ID and its ranked is 1. Yeah, lists, or they're also known as arrays, start with 0. So it's slightly odd, but you just need to know it's 1 off from how we would count. They start with 0. So Instagram, instead of being at rank 1, it is ranked 1, but the index is 0. And this, right, instead of being at rank 2, the index of it is 1. Ariana Grande, the index of that is 2. So you just got to know they start at 0. That being said, okay, so var, we have this, and all I want to do is grab who this user would be. So I'm going to head into functions, and there's 2 ways of doing this. I could do a variable, and maybe that's more clear, and I could just say owner, and what I want to do again is show or return who the user is. Owner, and then I'm going to say, what's the name of my list? Owner list. And I need to put a number in here. I need to put an index. Well, this rank is going to be the index the user wants. It will be the number they want, rank. But remember, if they want the first user, the index of that first user is 0. It's not 1. So if they want the first user, I think they would put rank 1, right? They wanted the most famous or most followed. So I'm going to subtract 1 from this because the index is always starts at 0. All right, so now we have the owner of that account. Finally, we need to return or give back the information they're seeking. So I could type owner here. Now, you might notice a redundancy. I could also directly do this and get rid of that. That could be more efficient. It would do the same thing, but I'm going to leave it like this. I think it is more readable. All right, now we got to make sure to have comments. Boom, boom. And I'm just going to briefly say returns owner name at a given rank. Okay. And now what else do I need? I need to say what the parameter is. Rank is called the parameter here. So I'll say rank, and it is a number. I'm going to say integer, right? A number without a decimal. And then it is an integer, and what is it? It is going to be rank of most followed used for index. Okay. And then I'm going to say what is returned. This owner is returned. And owner is a string, right? It's a word or 2 words. That's a string. And it is name of owner of the account. Okay. Now, let me go back into this. Our next function here, just so it's more readable, I'm going to hit enter a bunch. You don't need this, just so I can make sure it's readable on the screen. Okay. So now this function, and I might even drop a space in here. For this function, we're not going to need a parameter, right? That information that goes here. Because what I'll do is I'm going to just return the average of those most followed accounts. Get is a common way to start a method or a function, especially in our library, that returns something. Because it kind of explains to the user, hey, this is grabbing information, expect a return. So get follower average. And now we need a for statement. Now, since for statements are somewhat confusing, I'm going to get rid of this if and return for a second because I want to demo this. Here's my for statement. For I is equal to 0, I is less than 4, I plus plus. What does this do? Well, I just made a variable I, and it starts at 0. Think of this as a counter. I must always be less than 4, and I plus plus means I'm adding 1 to I each time. So I'm just going to use a console to print out, console log, what's going on to show you. I'm going to just write I here and a colon, I guess. I'll do a space, and then I'm going to use the arrow keys to get behind the quote and write I, because this version of I is actually the variable. Now let me hit run. And you can see 0, 1, 2, 3. Now what's going on here? I starts at 0. The computer says, okay, I is 0. Is 0 less than 4? Yes, I is less than 4. 0 is less than 4. That is true. Okay, so I can keep going. And next time I need to add 1 to I. All right, so I is going to be I0. It hits the bottom of our loop, zoop, back to the top, and says, okay, I used to be 0, I plus plus. 0 plus 1 is, well, shockingly, it's 1. Is 1 less than 4? Well, yes, 1 is less than 4, so that's true, and it can go ahead and dive into the loop again. It prints I1, hits the bottom, back to the top. It says, okay, I used to be 1, 1 plus 1, because 1 plus plus is 2 less than 4? Yes, it logs 2, hits the bottom, back to the top. 2 plus plus, so 2 plus 1 is 3 less than 4? That is true again, prints 3, back to the top. Now, I plus plus is 3 plus 1. Okay, so 4 is 4 less than 4. This is now false, and it would run code below it. There's a problem, though. We don't want to just count to 4. We need to go through our entire list. So, and what do I need? I want to find the average amount of followers. So I'm going to actually do another list here, and it's going to be a follower list, because I'm going to get all the followers. Let me do data, get column, and drop. Once again, I need to find my Netflix, my Instagram data, and go ahead and click here, choose, and what do I want? I want the followers in the millions. Now I'm going to drag my for loop up here. I don't need console log. I was just showing you what was happening. Here's the issue. My list has a lot more than 4 items in it, and I need to go through the whole list to get the average. So instead of writing 4, there's this really neat property we can use. It says string str length, but I can drop this in here, and you can also use this for a list to get the entire length of the list. So follower list.length, what that will give us is it will just count how long the list is. We're going to pretend it is 50 items long. Now, dot length doesn't start counting at 0. It starts with 1. It counts individually each item. But that is great, because that means if there is 50 items in the list, this will say 50. And then for indexes in that list, since indexes do start at 0, there'd be indexes 0 to 49, which is perfect, because if there's 50 for this, I must be less than 50. Well, that's great, because the last index is 49. All right, now I need a variable to calculate, to save my average to. So var equals average, and I'll set it to 0. I'm going to want to know how many times this loops. How to do this. There's actually going to be a few ways. Let's actually call this sum, because that's going to be more accurate. Because first we're going to add up how the entire amount of followers. Now, on each loop, I'm going to do sum will be equal to sum. So sum is going to be equal to whatever it used to be equal to, plus follower list I. So we're going to loop through all of these followers here, zoop, and add them all up, which is great. Once we have those, though, we want to get the average. So I'm going to drop another variable here and call this one average. What will that be? Well, I need a division symbol, zoop. And for this average, I'm going to write the sum over what? I need how many items were in my list, right? To get an average. So the sum over follower list dot length. Boom. That will give us our average, which we want to spit back out to the person using our library. Return average. Great. Now, once again, we could return this directly and not have a variable. I'm going to Control Z and Control Z. I think this makes my code more readable. Now, I'll briefly explain. Allows access to the average amount of followers. And then what I need to do, though, this doesn't have a parameter, nothing here, but it has a return. So I need to explain what I'm getting returned here, or what's returned. This will be an integer, and it's going to be the average amount of followers. Awesome. I'm going to do some testing real quick because we want to make sure it works. So to run our function, oh, that's an extra. To run our function, we need to ask it to run. We have this block of code. It's never, ever, 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 ever going to run. I'll just use a console log to do this. So somewhere. And I'll drop it here. Okay. You can run it after, you can run it before. Usually I'd run it before. So actually I'll put it up here. And I'm going to delete the word message. It sometimes fights me on deleting these quotes. I'll put my cursor behind it and I will test out. Let's do get user by rank and make sure it's spelled exactly the same with capitalization. And I'm just going to return that first user, which was Instagram. So it should tell me who that user is by doing this. What this says is run this function and the parameter is 1. So the computer says, what the heck is get user? Smack. And then rank. Oh, okay. So I have to run this. Owner list grabs all the owners. Owner is equal to owner list. Okay. Rank. What was rank? Oh yeah, rank. What was that? 1. Oh yeah, 1. So 1 minus 1 is 0. And then what should be returned then is the owner. And the owner would be Instagram, I believe. Hits the bottom of our function. And so then it finishes this. Oh yeah, I need to log to the console. Oh, what did I just return? And this becomes the name of the owner. Let's hit reset and run to test. Yep, that one worked great. Now I want to test my get average. So I'm just going to change this to get follower average. I don't need a parameter for this one. There's nothing being passed. And then it should smack that information down here. Perfect. So that must be the average. Oh, notice that's not an integer, right? So it's actually a decimal. I would call that a double, usually in computer science. You can probably also write decimal. Okay, so this is looking good. Let me get rid of my test statement and ta-da, let's keep going. Here I am on part 9. It kind of fought me getting here, so I actually just went to the arrow, I clicked these guys, and I went there because it didn't want me to finish it off without having everything be running. So click share, show advanced options. Yeah, we get to share our library so others can use it. So to do this, I'm going to go way up here and hit share. Now I have to click show advanced, share as a library, share as a library. Okay, so, and then here's my library name. I'm going to rename mine to Insta Library. I know I'm creative. Insta Library for project. Yeah, I'll leave that. I can write Instagram info library maybe. Something like this. And then I do want allow access to both of my functions here. And I'm going to hit update. Perfect. I can copy the ID for later use. Copy. Awesome. And there we go. Our library is shared. I'm going to continue on here. So now we could test a classmates library. Or our own. Use this level to test a classmates library. I'll just be testing my own as the example, but let me go ahead and click on this gear icon and click manage libraries. Now I can let me go ahead and click on this gear icon and click manage libraries. It has some of my old libraries in here. Here's my Instagram library. I could also, that ID I copied, I could paste it right here and hit add. I'll do it this way. And how you know it worked, let me click the gear again, manage libraries, it will appear here. But again, if it shows up here, I could also hit that plus. How do I test this? Well, I can click on it, right? I can click here and see the function names. This will be either my library or another of my classmates. I'm going to try get user by rank. I'm just going to copy this so I remember its name, X and X. You could use console logs that I've already done. One other way to test if you want is I'm going to use just briefly text area. And then maybe I'll use an if statement with a button or a function. So output text. And then I'll use a button. This is just another way to test if you don't want to use console logs. And I'll say run button, run. Okay. Not exactly centered, good enough. Code. What I'll do now is I need an on event. And on the event that the run button is clicked, what do I need to do? I'm going to run one of those functions that are in my library. Keep in mind, this isn't going to work at first. So let me go to functions and I'm going to run the get user by rank. Let's go ahead though. I want to set that equal to a variable. So I'll say user name here. And then I'm going to go ahead and back to functions and call this function. I need an argument. By the way, a parameter is called an argument when you are running the function. Now, I know it's get user by rank, and we'll say again, I want the rank of the first user. This is not going to work. I want to show you why. There's two reasons. Var username equals, okay, that's great. And I know I want to put it out here. So set text, qucha, and then set text of what? Output text. And I'm going to delete this whole thing by using the arrow key and getting behind the quotes. It can fight you on that, and type username. I could also directly pull this down and eliminate that variable if I wanted. All right, now why it doesn't work. We can't figure out what this is. So we have two issues. It doesn't understand what get user by rank is. Let me hit this gear again, manage libraries. I need to be using my library's name, Insta library. So let me add that here. And this is done through dot notation. Insta library. I need it to be exactly the same and put a dot. That way I'm telling the computer, hey, that's where this function is. Now let's try. And error. What? What's going on? Most Instagram followers. So my library uses this one, remember? My library is going to use Instagram followers, as you could guess by the name of it. So I have to head now to data because I don't have access to that yet. I only have access to mine or my classmates' made library. Inside of data, I'm going to go find that, which I think was in culture and entertainment. It is. Click on most followed Instagram accounts and click import. I know it worked because it's here. All right, now let's try. Reset and run. Qucha. Awesome. And so I tested that. That works. Another way I can test, which I've done before, is I can use a console log. And that's what I'll do for my next test of the next function. Console log, which will put the information down here. Let me go to the gear and manage libraries. Look at my library and, oh yeah, get followers average. It doesn't need a parameter, so I'm just going to right click and copy that name, X and X. And I'm going to delete all of this stuff again. So I'm going to get behind the last quote with the arrow keys, otherwise it fights me, and delete all of that. So for my function name, I don't need this in. I'm going to grab and drop and paste that here. This should run get followers by average. Be careful though. I need my library name once again, Insta library dot. Okay. And let me hit run. Reset. This will run automatically. Run. Boom. And there's my average. And if I hit run, there is that. So there is two ways of testing a classmate or your own library. Onward. And this level 10 is used to take into account some of the feedback I got from my partner, the person who tested it. Maybe they said you could use better function names. Maybe some of the math was off. Anything like that you can incorporate. For instance, get user by rank, get follower average. Maybe my partner said using an S here is better. You just want to make it sure to incorporate that feedback and double check everything. We have a fancy, fancy, fancy library. And submit. Onward.